So today we're going to talk to you guys about Trayline assembly. I'm Corinna.
I'm Jasmine.
I'm Roxana.
And I'm Jennifer.
So we're going to talk about why you would want this in a food service and why a food service would want to use this. So it's accurate, it's fast, it provides good quality control, and it's a good way to get a lot of food out to a lot of people without sitting around for too long. So you can find them in hospitals, they might set it up for like airplanes, basically in places where there are a lot of people that need to be served and that have kind of similar foods that are going to be served. And people who would benefit from this are people who can't go to the cafeteria, are confined to one place, and when there are a lot of people who need to be served.
Okay, so one huge component of the Trayline is I'm going to talk a little bit about the menu system in the Trayline. So for to assemble stuff, you need to know what you're going to assemble. So there's two different types of menus. There's a selective menu and there's a non-selective menu. So in the selective menu, the patient or the customer gets the opportunity to choose what they want to eat, and it's usually for the next day. And but then sometimes patients aren't able to choose because maybe they're not feeling well, or they weren't there when the menu was passed around, or when it was picked up. And then they might be if they're a patient at a hospital, they might be recently admitted and they just missed it when they were doing the selective menu. So or also maybe their diet order has changed and then their selection is no longer valid. So then what happens is the patient doesn't get a chance to choose to complete a menu, then they're given a house diet or a default selection. But if their preferences are known, then a service personnel such as a diet clerk, they'll help personalize a menu for them based on their individual preferences and likes and dislikes. So the other type of menu that I mentioned was this non-selective menu, and this is the opposite of selective menu, and customers do not get the opportunity to make choices, but their food preferences are taken into consideration, like their likes and dislikes and their food allergies. And but ultimately the decision to complete the menu is made by a service personnel, like the diet clerk. So a lot of hospitals use a paper-based menu system. So the menu selection is on a menu card, and there's some disadvantages to this. Sometimes the selections aren't marked clearly, so then it's hard to read, and then this negatively affects the efficiency of the Trayline. It slows it down. And then what can be done to help this is they use color coding of menus and color code condiment packages to help the Trayline run a little bit more efficiently and minimize errors. And a new thing that people start using versus the paper option is software. Start using software in the Trayline system, and a software can help vastly improve the accuracy and efficiency and speed of a Trayline, and it can involve both a selective and a non-selective menu system. It eliminates a lot of the paperwork and a lot of human error, and if you have changes, last-minute changes, you can go into the system and change it, and it's a lot quicker than if you were to do it manually by hand. And workers don't need to sift through all the information because it's all there in the system. So the software has helped a lot, and the Trayline has improved the efficiency a lot, and it's in many food service operations use this versus the paper option.
Okay, so next I'll talk about the equipment and then So there's two types of equipment that are used during a Trayline. First, there's the actual equipment that is there's a type of support equipment, and then there's the type of equipment that actually goes on the trays and actually forms the trays. So the first type is the support equipment. So it would include, for example, right here, the conveyor belt that keeps the trays moving. So that's like one of the most important parts of the tray line because that's what keeps the trays moving. There's also steel work tables. So some of these could be steel work tables. There's also refrigerators to keep the beverages that will go on the trays to keep them cold. So this could be a refrigerator. And there's also steam tables where they keep, let's say, like other things warm while you wait for them to be placed on the actual trays because there's no actual food making or preparing on the actual tray line. So everything is made by the chef or by the cooks somewhere else and then it is brought here and it's just a holding area. So at the beginning you will also have heated plate dispensers or lowerators so that the plates are already heated for when the food is placed on them. It'll keep them warmer longer. And there's also the tray lowerators that hold the trays where the plates will be placed. So those are some of the basic support equipment that goes on the tray line. Oh, and there's also the carts in which once they go through the whole process, they're put on carts that, let's say in a hospital setting, and then they're taken to the rooms. So that's the basic support equipment. And then as for on the actual tray, there's the utensils. They're also considered equipment because they go on there. There's heated cores, which are they go under the plate and they're heated beforehand, and then they keep the plate heated for at a higher temperature for longer. And then there's also insulated mugs and bowl covers that also help maintain the temperature, not only warm but also cold. So they can go either way. They can be placed in a refrigerator beforehand, or they can be placed in a warming station. And another equipment that is not really considered equipment by many people, but actually is like Jesse mentioned, the packets of condiments, because those can be bought in bulk and they are actually placed on the tray, but they're not really considered food, and they can come pre-packaged, like she mentioned, for different types of diets. So for low sodium diet, the regular diet, or all of that, so it's kind of considered equipment also. And that is pretty much it.
So now I'll go over a real life example. So hopefully all of you guys went to Sutter General Hospital like we did, and they used the C-board to help them choose the menu. So that was a computer system where basically the patient's preferences were put in and then it gave them a meal depending on what their preferences were. So this is really useful because it would decrease the food waste because people wouldn't leave as much food on their trays, and it would increase the patient's satisfaction because they're actually getting food that they would want to eat. They cycled their menu every 1 week for the patients because they realized that the patient stays were usually 2 to 3 days. So if they cycle every week, there won't be a lot of overlap in the food that the patients are getting. But for people who were there for longer periods of time, they gave them other options. So the tray line that they used had 5 employees like this, and then 1 supervisor who also checked it. So before the tray line actually starts, the supervisor would go through and make sure that all of the food was set up, and go through and taste all the food to make sure it's not too salty or any other faults with it. So person 1 would set up the trays and then put on napkins, tray covers, the heated core, condiments, and utensils. And then in theirs, person 2 was in charge of beverages. And person 3 was for warm entrees, so these had the steam tables. Person 4 was in charge of bread and butter, and it also had the ice creams and sorbets for people who couldn't eat other things. And then 5 was the vegetables and side dishes, and then 6 checked them and put them on the trays to get ready to be sent out to the appropriate patients.
Now I'm going to talk about food presentation, and it's really important to customer satisfaction. When food looks appealing and the tray looks neat and everything is assembled nicely and the plate is just colorful with the food, it's more appealing to the customer and they will want to eat it. And this is especially important in hospital settings or like a nursing facility where people are not feeling well and they're losing their appetite. So this helps them feel more motivated to eat it, especially if they're not feeling well. And also, for example, if they don't eat the food, then it increases their risk of malnutrition or unintended weight loss, and it also can increase the food waste. So the three topics that I will talk about is quality, accuracy, and appearance. For quality, quality is influenced by the efficiency of Trayline. So if production is quick and they could just put the food on the plate quickly, then it can maintain the temperature much quicker than if it was like a slow Trayline, where it would allow more time for temperatures to drop or for cold temperatures to go to room temperature, and then it'll enter the danger zone of 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not good. And that's why we have the food service equipment to help us maintain the temperatures as we assemble it through the tray line as well as delivery to the patient. Second of all, we have accuracy. So we want to make sure that the food items match the tray ticket that we produce for each patient. So then they would get the adequate amount of nutrition due to their therapeutic needs. And this is to prevent weight loss and malnutrition, as mentioned earlier, and also to avoid food allergies, because we don't want allergic reactions to happen if we put something they're allergic to and we ignored it on the ticket. So it's very important to have strict accuracy with the tray items on the tray. As mentioned earlier, like the old method was to have handwritten preferences on a cart. That required more thinking on the spot of adjusting what to put onto the plate rather than calculating it ahead of time. And that's why we have the new program, which is to use the nutrition analysis and then match that with the patient preferences and produce the meal tickets. And also it's important to have the right portions, because if you put a little bit too much, then maybe it'll go overboard for someone with a carbohydrate restricted diet or someone who is on a low sodium diet. And third of all, appearance. So appearance affects the way that people judge the quality. Color is really important. You don't want something that's really dull, like mashed potatoes and like a biscuit or something. It's not very colorful, obviously, so it may not be appealing to the person that's eating it. And also, people associate colors with certain flavors. And then second of all, texture is important as well as consistency. You don't want something that's creamy and then like two items that are creamy, but you want variability so that there's more character to it than just something that's plain and bland. And next is shape. You could think about different forms of the food. So let's say we're serving carrots one day and then a couple days later we're serving carrots again. You could give baby carrots and then another time like carrot cones or medallions, so it's like different shape. Also the arrangement matters, so you don't want something to be like too close because it could spill over and then mix the flavors of the items, and you also don't want it to be too far, because then it makes the plate look, or the portions a lot smaller and the plate look kind of empty. And then it's also important to add like garnish as well, so that it adds color but also like a decoration. And lastly, the dinnerware. You want to make sure that it's not overcrowded, so then you avoid spillage, and also make sure everything's clean, nothing's cracked, nothing's damaged. And yeah, that's it for a food presentation.
So now we'll go over the handout. So this is an example of what we would give to an employee who's just starting Trayline for the first time. So let's pretend that Jennifer is all 6 workers on a miniature Trayline right here. So we're assuming that all of the food has been checked for temperature and for the quality. So you can look at this quick checkoff list of things. This is the temperatures that they should be when they're on the tray line. And then at the end, we'll make sure that the last 3 are checked off. So first on our tray line, we would want her to assemble the tray and put on any condiments or napkins or silverware. And this is after reading the card, and she's putting the card from the patient on there and making sure that to note if they're on a low sodium diet or dysphagia diet or any other kind of diet.
Here is the card, and this one in circle is regular, but there's a lot of other options like carb control, low sodium, and that would go on the tray if we were using like a paper-based system.
So up top, we have a sample tray so that the employee who is setting this up would have an idea of where each item should go, because we want it to be consistent. So we always want the drinks in the same place, and we always want the side dishes in the same place. So next would go to the second person in the tray line, and they would put on the salads, fruits, desserts, and bread and butter. And then the third person in this tray line would put on the soups and hot vegetables or other side dishes. And then we have the entree, which we would put into the hot container, the hot core.
This is the hot core.
And then the fifth person is gonna put in drinks and specialty items.
Drink and a milkshake.
So then we have the checker who's gonna check for accuracy and make sure that everything that's on this sheet is actually on here and it's going to the right patient, and that there's nothing different on here, like it's not pediatrics or anything else. And then they're gonna put it in the appropriate cart for the level that it's going to, and then send it off after they make sure that everything's clean and presentable.
So I just want to go over everything really fast. So a Trayline is very efficient, especially like in hospital settings and those type of places, because of all the benefits that it brings. Like, it only took less than 30 seconds to complete a whole tray, and that way you can bring out more trays and get food to people, like you said, at a better quality, at a higher quality, because it'll be faster and it'll be warmer and it will maintain its form. So let's say you're serving a parfait or something, if it's not the right temperature, it's not only not going to taste good, but it's also not going to look good, appealing, and so most likely it'll increase the waste. So a Trayline provides better food at a higher quality at a faster rate, and it reduces waste. So those are practically the main points. And any questions? Yes.
Like, I saw at the hospitals or wherever there are Trayline, that a lot of the trays coming back from the patients are like untouched, and all those have to go to waste. So how, are there any like rules or systems that you guys use to minimize that? Maybe like ask the patient beforehand? Do you guys do that, or?
So ideally we want them to eat, like there is an issue where patients are just not gonna eat because of whatever is wrong with them, when they have sores in their mouth, things like that. But we wanna give them the food so that hopefully something on there will appeal to them and they'll get some nutrients.
And another thing to reduce waste is we have like diet clerks or diet assistants ask for their preferences of their likes and dislikes, and if they have any food allergies. That way, if they're lactose intolerant, we don't want to keep giving them milk, because then we have to keep throwing it away.
So if we see that like they haven't touched their food, like we might send someone like a diet clerk to go over and ask them, ask why, and ask them, is there anything we can do to make your meal better, more
That would make
enjoyable?
it more appealing to you. So that's something we can do. Yes.
So how would you like prevent, if somebody wanted ice cream, how would you prevent that from melting before it got to the room?
Like I mentioned, there's insulated mugs and stuff. There's also, well, it's not actually like the mug itself. There's also like little mini cores for the mug to go in, like with the plate. There's a core, and then there's also little ones for the actual ice cream.
Yeah, so you can either heat the core up or you can freeze the core.
And there's
Okay.
different sizes.
Okay. How long does the hot plate keep the foods hot?
From what I remember, it is up to 2 hours. That'll keep it at an adequate temperature, and then after that it just starts. It'll still be warm, but it won't be at what it should be.
Using Seaboard, is it a possibility since the program, like if there's a patient that has like multiple diets or restrictions, that it's gonna come out with like a menu that's really limited, and then like how would you fix that?
possibly, but the diet clerk, there's still someone overseeing it, so before it goes out, hopefully the diet clerk would make any alterations that they could to make it a little more interesting and not the same thing every day of their stay.
Like the software definitely helps, but it's not, shouldn't be like the only thing that we use. Like it's in conjunction with like a lot of other factors too. To like make like the optimal experience for the patient or the customer.
And getting to know the patients sometimes also helps. So you get to know them and you know more about them, then you'll know like, oh, well, this is supposed to be for them, but I know they don't like this, so you can make those changes yourself.
If we're setting up for like sick pediatrics or something and you have a patient that's like stuck determined, I want my mac and cheese or I want my chicken nuggets, and that's not something that like we have, would we go out and get it, or would we like modify it, get it as close as possible, or in those situations?
I think you would try to work with what you have depending on your menu, and that's another thing that Seaboard does. So like if you are using Seaboard, it looks at what else you're serving and tries to like make an approximate.
And for pediatrics, they're usually more kid-friendly meals,
Yeah.
like things like mac and cheese, because they want the kids to eat
And
them.
they usually have special menus for that, or separate menus for those. There's separate menus usually for pediatrics and maternity. So they usually get more finger foods that are easy to eat and just more appealing to children and women who are breastfeeding, so they can like be breastfeeding and eating at the same time. So they
We're out of time, so
Oh.
next group. Thank you.
Thanks.